Okay, why hunt for a flat in Noida or Ghaziabad or Faridabad when you can book one right within Delhi's city limits for under 50 lakhs? Well, you must be wondering, how can a flat in Delhi cost that low? And also, is there even room for a housing project when Delhi already seems to be bursting at its seams? Well, apparently an underground property market seems to be thriving in the capital, which has now come under the scanner of the Delhi Development Authority for being illegal. Here's my report. Mouth-watering deals for apartments in Delhi. New housing societies in the capital's urban extension zones are trading hot in Delhi's property markets. Companies with little or no track record have suddenly come into existence, promoting affordable priced flats in the peripheral rural belts of Delhi. The Delhi Development Authority has released over 27,500 hectares of land across 8 zones for residential projects, where its new land pooling policy will be implemented. Eager to capitalize on this opportunity, estimated to grow into an 8,000 crore market over the next 2 to 3 decades, newly formed entities are aggressively land banking. In anticipation of the new zones that will be opened up for land pooling in Delhi's outer circles, apartment projects have already been launched and flats are being booked anywhere between 45 to 70 lakhs. For a policy that is still on the drawing board, it would be a huge gamble for people to invest their money in any project that advertises land pooling. Warning the general public to beware of offers of flats or plots under land pooling, DDA recently issued cautionary notices. Because even though approved by the Urban Development Ministry, the land pooling policy awaits some critical additions by the DDA.
Guidelines have to be framed, and unless until these regulations are in place, nobody can say anything about the location, about the pricing and the time frame. Most likely in, say, by end of August or beginning of September, we should be in a position to notify guidelines about the land pooling policy.
Right now, these housing societies are accepting booking amounts on just an expression of interest. But in the name of approvals, all they have is a society registration certificate. However, even if the operational guidelines of the policy are out, experts state it would take another year and a half before any housing project receives all the documentation necessary to have some legal standing.
Today is a B2B opportunity, it is not a B2C opportunity. So, when I say B2B, it is the business class, the institutional investor, the HNIs who can buy land to participate in the opportunity tomorrow after the land pooling policy is operationalized. The consumers who want to take up a position, they better be beware, because those who are selling apartments do not have a valid license, and the DDA by its own admission says it will take at least 12 to 18 months for them to issue LTCs and grant of licenses.
With camera person AJ Joseph, Vasudha Sharma, NDTV. Master Plan 2021 of Delhi is being seen as a major real estate opportunity given the huge demand for housing in the captive National Capital Region. But as the DDA Vice Chairman just warned in that story, it's too early for people to park in their money in projects just yet. What could be the possible pitfalls and risks involved? Let's get a perspective from Ramesh Menon, Director of Certis Realty. He's an expert voice on land investments and the 2021 Delhi Master Plan. Ramesh, thank you for joining us today. So the policy, approved by the Urban Development Ministry, but still the journey is still incomplete. So would you term the housing bets around land pooling speculative in nature now?
At this moment, yes. To be honest, today is a land opportunity. If you have a decent capital and you want to buy land, subsequently contribute towards the pooling policy, whenever it is, when the operationalization mechanism is announced, it's a very, very good opportunity, because then you're looking at a delta of multiples. But for individual house owners, etc., this is not at all an opportunity, because at this moment the government has only announced the land pooling policy. To follow would be the operationalization mechanism, followed by the LTC and the licensing norms and construction bylaws, etc., etc. So that, to my mind, is at least a year and a half away from today. So it's a time for caution for individual home buyers.
So right now we just have an indicative idea as per the master plan, the draft master plan, that these are going to be the new R zones and these would come under land pooling. But how did these newly sprung up unknown companies fix a price of about 40 lakhs to 70 lakhs? You know, that's the price trading on these online portals that you see.
To be honest, they would have done some suggestive pricing. There is no surety as to what could be the cost of FAR to these so-called developers. There is no indication of what will be the height and the FAR and density norms. So it is either there are some people who have land and who have proposed to construct something, or there are people who have formed societies and collecting money to buy land. So in either case, there is no surety whether they would get the land in return from the government at a particular place, whether they can develop, whether they can construct the so-called number of apartments they have already announced.
Also, as a consumer, what kind of due diligence can you do once? Firstly, let's actually talk about the timelines. Okay, the DDA Vice Chairman is talking about the guidelines, the norms going to come up in about August. So, from August onwards, when do we actually see the land pooling policy in operation?
So, it is not just the DDA, you also have to take into account the revenue department, because that's the department which administers land. So, the revenue department has to aggregate all the land pooled by individuals, companies, large landowners or even small landowners, and they have to reallocate land. In my wisdom, they should take not less than 9 months to put the whole package together. Subsequently, the government has to figure out which parcel to be allotted to whom and where. And for grant of license, you need to have at least 5 acres of land. What happens to somebody who's got less than 5 acres of land? So he, she, the entity has to be allotted the LTC, the land trading certificate. And post all that exercise, if there are some land parcels which are yet to be surrendered, the government will have to issue Section 4 notices on them for acquisition purpose if they hinder the creation of infrastructure.
Okay.
Subsequent to all of it, would the grant of license happen? So,
9 months to about a year?
At least 18 months from
18
now,
months
at least, not before that.
Okay. So, post this first phase of 18 months, when the policy is in effect, the consumers get in, what kind of due diligence can consumers do? Right now, if you check these brochures of these projects which are coming up in these zones, all they have is a registration from the Registrar of Societies and nothing else. What kind of documents should they look out for?
No, see, Registrar of Society is only allowing you to pool capital together, which is voluntary, right, for any defined purpose. They are not allowing, or the Registrar of Societies is not the authority to grant licenses to build house or homes in these parcels. Like I said, it's a good opportunity for people to pool in capital, buy a piece of land on which probably they can develop something tomorrow, but definitely it is not the time to invest into apartments. As far as due diligence is concerned, various court rulings have come in clearly stating that you need a license to build. Now, we haven't reached that stage yet. So, merely creating a few designs on a piece of paper and or floating an offer on the online medium is no surety of you qualifying to develop any piece of land.
Yes, some of these projects have their layout plans, their floor plans all designed and fancy brochures, so don't fall for that. But Ramesh, it's quite mouth-watering to actually think of a flat within Delhi. You don't have to go to Noida or Gurgaon. But in that respect, what kind of cautionary word would you give out to viewers? What are the exactly gaps where you could actually get stuck if you go for such a project?
To be fair to these people, who have land, right? They do not have a license, but they should keep a lot of caution in mind, saying that they do not qualify as developer entity yet. If you look at the land pooling policy, the GDE clearly says a developer entity who will have a certain strengths. Now, what those strengths are they financial strengths? Are they the strength of the books? Are they strength of having developed something in the past? Are they, strengths on design and execution? So those strengths are not yet in. So merely holding a piece of land does not qualify you as a developer entity, one. Two, the consumers who are falling for it, they probably are assuming today that, 1 year, 2 years or 3 years from now, there won't be a supply in the 50 to 70 lakh price range. Is absolutely wrong, because the amount of supply surge that Delhi is forecasting, coupled with whatever is being created in the NCR market, there is no reason that the prices will gallop from here on. So, you haven't missed the bus. That's my advice to the consumers, that, you still will keep getting supplies in these same price points when this whole supply surge happens.
That's actually the point. You haven't missed the bus. A lot of people within the Delhi market are, have this hawkish stand that we don't want to miss this opportunity, new supply coming up in Delhi. Sameer, what's your assessment? What's your final word on this? Pricing flats between 40 to 70 lakhs, what could be the genuine price of housing projects that come up in these zones?
You see, I've been saying for a long time now that you'll see once Delhi starts launching projects, Gurgaon and Noida will get affected. Now, the land prices in Delhi have been fairly low when these acquisitions were made. So, I definitely think that you can see Delhi offering apartments in the range of 5,000 rupees a square foot upwards. May not happen below that. Now, 40 to 70 lakhs, one has to also know what the size of the flat really is. But my guess is that it will be in the vicinity of 5,000 rupees a square foot, and you have, and it will be location specific. For example, there are certain zones which will be above 10,000 rupees a square foot also, and certain zones where you may even get mid to affordable housing at 3.5, 4, 5,000 rupees a square foot. So it will vary between, I would say, this price point of 3,500 rupees going all the way to 10 to 15,000 rupees a square foot.
Okay, all right. So the final word from Sameer. Ramesh, thank you so much for joining us today. So projects coming up under the land pooling model, being advertised under the land pooling model. Ramesh says it's right now just a B2B business, B2B opportunity, not the perfect time for consumers to get in now. Too early to invest. The DDA also sending out a cautionary note.